The weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Mike Comtech coming to you here with another video. Got a project on a 2005 Plush Snowman playing the piano. And this one works fine. This one works totally perfectly. I'm going to set it back over here. But we've got one over here that does not. He came in here completely dead because of the battery box. They had corrosion at the bottom of the battery box. And there's a little cover that goes over this part right here. The two springs were completely eaten away, but you can take the back side of the piano off, and this is where all the controller circuitry is. And so let me get this up here in the light a little bit better maybe. So the battery box, the top of the battery box is right there, so there's the positive and negative. So if I hook on from my power supply, if I hook on the negative lead here and the positive lead right there, and then I hit the little button over here on the side.
The weather outside is frightful.
Okay, so that works. So I guaranteed that works. Battery box isn't that big a deal to fix. The upper contacts are good. So, but the little Snowman wasn't moving at all, period. He was completely non-existent, didn't move. So I took a seam ripper, ripped up the back here, undid, this is the thread that holds him together right here. I undid all that and then took this motor cover off once I got here. Actually, there was I'll tell you what, there's another cover besides that. This cover was on, let's see, that was on this way. I gotta reorientate myself here where we were. Yeah. So this cover was in here like that. Because that pinion, this little pin gear right here, this pin shaft right here has to go in that hole, goes there. And that you have to take that off, and then of course there's like a little sack here. You have to tear into that too and rip that so you can get to this part. Then 4 screws hold that together, and once you get to there, then you got this cover over the top of the motor and all that, and 1 screw. Excuse me here. I'm sorry, I got to move this thing around a lot. 1 screw right here, and then there was 2 of these little clips that you lift up, but the plastic was so brittle. I was very, very, very careful with that, but the plastic was so brittle that it ripped anyway. I mean, it popped. They snapped off there anyway. So what I'm getting ready to do, and what I've already done, is when I took the capacitor off, the little disc capacitor, and then unsoldered the wires. So I took the little disc capacitor off here, the 104, and took the 2 wires, the 2 wires here. The green one went to the top lead, the orange colored one it went to the bottom lead here. And then I checked the motor direct to the power supply, and nothing, and no continuity check, nothing. So I thought, what the heck, what we got to lose? We're this far into it, might as well go ahead and take it the rest of the way apart. So I popped this back plate off, got to the motor. Instead of trying to pull the motor out, because there is a pulley and it is a belt that drives that center shaft here, I just went ahead and pulled the tabs back with a very small screwdriver here, the little bitty tip. Took those, bent the tabs back straight up, and then I've done this before. I even did this when I was a kid, tearing little motors apart. And so took this back off, pulled it right out, and then there was a bunch of grease. And you know what happens to grease after that many years if it sits around. They had it a lot of grease around the commutator, and then the two little brushes were completely coated, and that grease had hardened, and then it kept it from making contact on for the little brushes to make contact on the commutator. And that's the commutator is the rotating, basically it has 3 copper pads on there, and then the brushes contact that, and then that's how that changes your field of, on a permanent magnet motor like this, like a little brush motor like this. When the motor starts, then it spins, and then the commutator is switching between each field to keep the opposition of the magnets in opposition with the center armature of the motor. And so that commutator was so full of dried grease that brushes couldn't make contact on those copper pads. So then here's one of the Q-tips that I used to clean it off here. So look at that. No wonder the poor thing didn't work. So it worked now. So I'm going to have to come back, because my tripod, I can't get anything that low, and I got to move this thing around a lot. So the next procedure is to put this plate back on, and that one screw holds it good enough. So the motor runs perfectly now. And so I'm going to put that back on, and then we're going to put that other back plate, this other back plate, and then get it all sealed back up. I got to resolder these two on, so we're going to do next. Resolder the capacitor and put the wires back on. And then we'll do that, and then we'll put the final back cover on. And then if all works out, we can get out the suture kit, and we will stitch him up. So we'll see how it works out. And I'll come back once I get this back plate on and get this soldered up, because I want to fire it up for you. So I shall return.
1 minute later.
Okay, Mike Comtech, we're back again. All right, you saw what he did there at the very last song. He plays 3 songs. Then he's supposed to turn like it did, and then, you know, acknowledge, kind of like a bow, and then he turns back. One motor in here doesn't, I think, I mean, it has to be, because the circuits just don't add up. There's 5 wires that run up to the inside of this, up to the other leg, up to that other leg, this one. And they come in right down here, this lower quadrant, right down in here. So there's 5 wires, and there's 2 leaf switches in there that tell the controller positioning. So when he comes this way, when he turns to the right clockwise, then it has to make a leaf switch. When it makes that leaf switch, then the mechanism engages, and then it swings him back, and then the other leaf switch says, okay, he's back to home position. And that's where he's at now, because you can start it instantly every time you hit the button. You don't have to wait for the controller to time out if that switch is not made, that leaf switch. Yeah, see, it'll start up every time. And the reason why this is this particular Hallmark prop is pretty problematic. If you look on eBay, there are tons of them. Probably more that don't work than do work. And I mean, it's pretty good percentage, and there's a lot of them on there, and they vary, you know, range from, you know, $5 to whatever, up to $30, $40 if they're working. And then, but this one really seems to be a problem, and it's that motor, or it's that belt-driven motor inside of the Snowman here. If it slips, if he gets over to when he turns and acknowledges he's done, if the motor gets stuck there, then if he doesn't make it back, then it quits moving altogether. It won't do anything. So, you know, it's got one of those poly belts on there, so that's what it is, I'm sure. I mean, it slips. But I just thought it would be fun to tear it apart. But I actually had to do a motor tear down. I actually take the back of that motor off, clean all the grease off the commutator, like I was saying, off the brushes, the whole thing, put all that back together. And then this is what he looks like with the back. There's 4 screws back here, 2 here, and there is 2 switch hands, 1, 3, and 4 right here. And then you have this you can like this cheesecloth, you can kind of rip into that and just kind of tuck it back in there. And then this is about what you'll need to sew it back together with. But, you know, for what I did, you know, you have to be familiar on how to take those little motors apart and be familiar on gears and such, because it is full of that. You saw that in the first shot, what the gears look like in here. And, you know, that's why I say people look at these things and they think, oh, that's cute, but, you know, that's fine and dandy. They are, but what goes on in the background is what makes it all tick right there. And it does have a bubble chip, but they mounted the bubble chip on a little backplane circuit board and mounted it vertically on the main board. And then I thought that was kind of interesting. Of course, that didn't have any room for it. So, but anyway, let me put my positive back on here. It does work. And as long as it keeps working, well, I guess it'll be all right. But it was just fun to do, to tear into that. I haven't torn into one of those little bitty brush motors and probably for 40 years, I imagine. But they don't change. They're all the same. But that's the problem. That motor was completely open. It was just caked with grease. So anyway, as usual, guys, thanks for watching my videos, and I really appreciate all the subscribers. So we will come at you later.